We've all been here. You're winning, everything's under control. And then, bam, one blunder, game over. But after watching this video, I promise, you will never blunder like this again. The first thing we're going to learn is how to perform a tactics check. Sounds fancy, right? But trust me, it's simple, and it'll keep you from making embarrassing blunders. So, what's a tactics check? It's the easiest way to stop yourself from looking like a total idiot on the board. Every time it's your turn, before you even think about that brilliant knight sacrifice you've got brewing in your head, pause and do a quick scan for tactical opportunities, for both sides. Let's break it down. Step 1. Assess your position. First thing you do? Look at your pieces. Are any of them just chilling out, completely unprotected, begging to get taken? If your knight is hanging out on the edge of the board like it's on vacation, it's probably time to either defend it or move it. Before you move, visualize 2, 3 moves ahead. I know, sounds like magic, but even basic visualization will keep you from losing material for no reason. Step 2. Here's the fun part. Look at your opponent's pieces. What are they threatening? If they've got their bishop laser focused on your f2 pawn, you've got a problem. They are targeting the center or even worse, planning an attack. Tactical checks are like preemptive strikes. You see the threat coming, and you neutralize it. Step 3. Spot the tactics. This is where it gets interesting. Look for tactical motifs. Forks, pins, skewers, you know, the good stuff. Ask yourself, can I use any of these to mess up my opponent's day? For example, if your knight can fork their queen and rook, don't hesitate, jump on that like it's the last slice of pizza. You should always be scanning the board for these patterns. And the best part? They happen way more than you think, especially in lower rated games where people are just out here hanging pieces like it's Black Friday. Step 4. Calculate before you get too excited. Now, don't go rushing to make a move just because you see something shiny. Take a second to calculate. You're looking for what happens after your move. Is there a trap you're missing? If you make this move, can your opponent counterattack? You've got to think ahead. No one wants to be the person who sacrifices their queen, thinking they're a genius, only to realize 3 moves later they've actually just handed their opponent the game. Imagine this. You've got a rook threatening your knight, and your first instinct is to move your knight out of danger. But wait, what if moving your knight opens up a tactical shot on their king? That's why you calculate. It's not just about dodging their threats, it's about turning them into opportunities. Step 5. Practice, practice, practice. Let's be real, you're not going to master this in one game. But don't worry, nobody does. Tactics checks are a skill you sharpen over time. Want to get better? Puzzles. Do them. Chess.com. Lichess, doesn't matter. Do a few puzzles every day. You'll start spotting tactics faster than your opponent can say, oops. And here's a pro move. After your games, go back and analyze them. Look for spots where you missed a tactic or fell into one. The more you review, the less likely you are to make the same mistake twice. It's like reviewing a terrible decision you made at 3 a.m. except this time, you'll actually learn something from it. There you have it, the tactics check. A habit that will literally save your chess rating and, let's be honest, a bit of your dignity too. So, next time it's your move, don't just throw out a random piece like you're gambling. Stop. Think. Check for tactics. You'll be surprised how often it turns the game in your favor. Okay, so, you've learned how to do a tactics check, now you're making fewer mistakes in the middle game. But what about when the board's almost empty, and suddenly you're in an endgame? That's where most players get completely lost. No more flashy tactics, no more wild attacks, just raw technique. But don't worry. Mastering basic endgames isn't just for grandmasters. Today, I'll show you how to close out games without embarrassing yourself in the process. Step 1. Basic mating techniques. First up, basic mating techniques. These are essential, yet so many people get stuck here, wasting 30 moves trying to mate with a queen and king. Don't be that person. Let's start with the simplest, king and queen versus king. You've got a queen, your opponent has just their king. This should be a win, no questions asked. But if you don't know the technique, you might end up chasing their king around the board like a cat chasing its own tail. And suddenly, it's a stalemate, and now you're the one wanting to disappear. Here's what you do. Start by placing your queen a knight's move away from the enemy king to restrict its movement. Then slowly push the king toward the edge of the board. While your queen cuts off space, don't forget to bring your king up the board. Your king will help deliver the final checkmate. Once the king is trapped on the edge, use your queen to check the king into a corner. From there, your king can move closer to deliver checkmate. Done correctly, this should take fewer than 10 moves. If you're chasing their king around the board for 50 moves, you've got a problem. Next, king and rook versus king. Slightly trickier but still super basic. The key concept is using your rook to create an imaginary box that restricts the enemy king's movement. You want to keep shrinking that box until their king is stuck on the edge of the board. Once their king is stuck on the edge, it's time for the final step. Move your rook to safety and then wait till the king stumbles to the corner. Now you can deliver the final blow with your rook and that's checkmate. And for the love of all things chess, learn the king and two bishops mate. It's rare. But when it comes up, if you don't know it, you'll feel like you're trying to solve a Rubik's Cube with your eyes closed. Trust me, learning this will save you from unnecessary draws and looking like a complete amateur. If you would like to learn all the other mating ways, you can check that out on our chess school, which is linked in the bio. It's $10 for the first 100 people, then the price will increase. Step 2. King activity is everything. Now, when you get to the endgame, you need to stop thinking about your king like a fragile pawn guardian. Your king becomes a weapon. In fact, the most important piece on the board. Think of it this way, in the opening and middle game, your king hides like a scared rabbit. But in the endgame, it's more like Rambo, it's coming out, ready to get in the action. You want to activate your king and get it into the center of the board. An active king in the endgame is worth its weight in gold. King activity wins games. If both sides are down to a couple of pawns and you've got a better positioned king, congratulations, you're probably winning. Bring your king up, grab space, and control key squares. Your pawns will thank you later.
Thank you so much, king, you're so sexy.
Step 3. Pawn endgames. Don't screw this up. If you've ever thrown away a one game in a pawn endgame, welcome to the club. Pawn endgames are brutal, because one wrong move can turn a win into a loss. It's like trying to walk a tightrope, except the tightrope is on fire. The good news? Most players at your level are equally terrible at them. Rule number 1 of pawn endgames: don't push pawns mindlessly. Just because you've got a pawn majority doesn't mean you start throwing them down the board. Think strategically. Push your pawns in a way that restricts the enemy king or promotes your pawns. Also, know your basics like how to turn a passed pawn into a queen. Step 4. Endgame patterns. Memorize them like your favorite opening. Here's the thing, endgames are all about patterns. Just like opening theory, there are key endgame patterns that repeat over and over. You've got to study these. Sure, you don't have to go all in and memorize hundreds of theoretical endgames, but knowing the key ones will help you immensely. For example, if you know the basics of pawn races, opposition, and key rook endgames, you'll already be miles ahead of your competition. And since 90% of low-rated games are won in the endgame by the player who understands these patterns, it's totally worth spending time on. We also teach that on our school. Pattern training is a method proved to improve your ELA drastically, so for the sake of getting good at chess, have a look at our school. It costs less than a slice of pizza and you will learn how to master your chess game, and if you don't like it you can cancel your subscription. Remember, your opponent isn't going to hand you the game. You've got to earn it by playing smart, accurate endgames. And trust me, when you stop blundering in the endgame, that's when you really start climbing the rating ladder.